What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and you're watching our ACC football channel. If you looked at Notre Dame's schedules the last couple of years in the preseason, on paper, they look like really difficult schedules, but a lot of teams that they have played wound up not being as good as we thought they were going to be. Stanford's been really down the last couple of years. USC hasn't been great. So that's been kind of the story for Notre Dame. You look ahead to 2020 and you look at the schedule and say, again, looks like a pretty tough schedule. But what if some of these teams don't pan out? What if some of these teams aren't as good as we expect in the preseason? It looks like a good schedule now, but that's the thing with all these schedules. You really don't know how good all these teams are going to be. But that's just kind of what has happened the last couple of years at Notre Dame. But let's look ahead to this 2020 schedule for the Irish and see if it's going to be a schedule that might give them a shot to get back to the college football playoff. Of course, they were 11-2 last year. They opened up the year, and this is actually week 0. It's the week before week 1. They will play Navy in Ireland. A really interesting matchup there, being over there in Ireland. It's week 0. Probably get a lot of eyeballs watching this game. So Notre Dame and Navy, week 0, August 29th, and then they will not play in week 1, which kind of makes sense. You go all the way out of the country, you probably need a couple of weeks to get back on track there. So September 12th, they'll play Arkansas at home. Arkansas, this is great. They're playing an SEC team. They're playing arguably the worst team in the SEC in the Razorbacks. And they'll play Western Michigan on September 19th. Wake Forest on the 26th in Charlotte. They've got 3 neutral site games. But yeah, they'll play Wake Forest, a team that should be, top half probably of the ACC. And then Wisconsin on October the 3rd in Green Bay. So basically a home game for Wisconsin. This should be a really good matchup. Wisconsin had a great year last year. They have enough coming back this year to where you would expect them to be a top 15 team probably again. It'll be a good test. Really the first big test for Notre Dame, I think. You look at those first 4 games. Arkansas, Wake Forest, Navy, those teams will play Notre Dame probably pretty tough. But do we really expect any of those teams to beat Notre Dame? I don't know. So Wisconsin here on the 3rd, and then Stanford on October the 10th. Of course, Stanford has been down. We'll see if they bounce back this year. On the 17th of October, they'll play on the road at Pittsburgh. Pitt could be pretty solid this year. So that is not going to be an easy game there. They'll play Duke on October 31st. They get another bye week. They technically get 2 bye weeks because they play in week 0, but week 1, it's not really a bye week because of all the things going out of the country and all that. So this would really be their bye week between Pittsburgh and Duke. They'll get Duke at home. Maybe you'd want to have the bye week 1 week later before playing Clemson. Might be nice to have it there. Of course, this is going to be a huge game. At home for Notre Dame, do they have a shot to take down the Tigers? This is really the only test on the schedule for Clemson. So they're going to be ready for this one. And that you talk about the strength of schedule, and it doesn't matter. You're at the end of the year, it's just how good you are. Well, it does matter, because is it fair for Notre Dame to have to play a bunch of really good teams while Clemson can put all this effort into this one game? And that's not really a good example because they play a lot of the same teams. But I'm just saying, when you talk about that for like a group of 5 team, maybe there's something to that. I don't know. But this will be a tough matchup, obviously, with Clemson being at home here. That's the good news. And then on November 14th, they'll play on the road at Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech, I expect to be at least somewhat better this year. Louisville's going to be a sneaky good team. This game is also at home for Notre Dame. So they get a lot of – really, they don't have any real tough road games. They have some neutral site games, but they only have 3 true road games: Pitt, Georgia Tech, and USC. I didn't notice that when I looked at the schedule earlier. Now, Wake Forest and Wisconsin, those are basically road games, given where those games are, but I'm sure there'll be plenty of Notre Dame fans at those games. USC to close it out on November 28th. I'm pretty high on this USC team. I think they're going to be good this year, especially offensively. I think that'll be a challenge, and it may be I wouldn't say it's the biggest challenge when you have Clemson on the schedule, but it might be their second biggest challenge because it's, again, on the road, and it's against a really high-powered offense. That, I think, could be a really big game to close out the year. I know some people will say USC's not going to be that good. We hear this every year, but I really believe they're going to be solid this year, and I think that'll be a nice way to close out the season. It should be a fun game, a potential top 25, maybe even top 15 matchup there to close it out. So again, you look at the schedule overall, it's pretty tough. It's pretty tough when you look at the teams: Wisconsin, Clemson, Louisville, USC. I mean, there's some pretty good teams on the schedule. It's not a brutal schedule, but there are definitely plenty of respectable opponents. The one thing that I think makes it a little easier, again, for the Irish is the fact that they have almost every game, every big game at home or on a neutral field, except for USC. That's probably their one true road challenge. Maybe Pitt. Pitt's going to be solid, of course, but all in all, I think the schedule sets up pretty well for Notre Dame. You know, if they don't beat Clemson, though, it'll be very tough, in my opinion, for them to win the rest of their games, and it could be another 10-2 season for this team. We'll have to wait and see, but they're, again, capable of winning, I think, the rest of those games. They'll have a shot, and would 11-1 be enough to get them in the college football playoff? If that one loss came to Clemson, I think it would probably depend on how they played in that game. If it was a close game, then there would definitely be a real conversation about Notre Dame getting into the college football playoff, even with the one loss. So all in all, 2020 schedule, not terrible because you don't have a lot of big road tests, but definitely a respectable schedule for the Irish this upcoming season.